Have you ever stopped to wonder why so many of us feel trapped by confusion when it comes to our health, particularly when it comes to something as vital and delicate as our kidneys? The idea of acidic foods has haunted conversations about nutrition for decades, sparking fear, uncertainty, and countless myths that circulate without evidence. But what if I told you that much of what we have been told about diet and kidney health is clouded by misunderstanding rather than truth? Imagine for a moment standing at a crossroads, where one path is paved with misinformation, anxiety, and unnecessary restrictions, and the other is illuminated by clarity, science, and empowerment. This is the very moment we find ourselves in when we try to navigate the complex world of nutrition for chronic kidney disease, or CKD. It is not just about what we eat. It is about how knowledge shapes our choices, our confidence, and ultimately our lives. The fear of consuming acidic foods has, for many, become a silent barrier, influencing daily habits and creating tension around meals that should bring nourishment and enjoyment. Yet, science has a way of untangling these fears, revealing that our bodies are more resilient than we often give them credit for, and that the concept of acid and alkalinity is far more nuanced than popular culture would have us believe. Here, at this very juncture, is where we must pause and reflect. Are we living under the weight of myths, or are we ready to embrace knowledge that empowers? It is natural to be cautious when it comes to health, yet it is equally important to seek understanding beyond the surface. Dr. Mathew R. Weir teaches us that true wisdom lies not merely in following rules or avoiding foods, but in understanding the underlying science and principles that govern our bodies, so that every choice we make becomes informed, deliberate, and life-affirming. Our kidneys, those quiet yet indispensable organs, perform a symphony of regulation, filtering toxins, balancing electrolytes, and maintaining the internal environment of our bodies. And yet, for many, the narrative of acidic foods harming your kidneys has created a shadow of doubt, prompting unnecessary fear and overly restrictive diets. But knowledge is power, and when we approach nutrition with curiosity rather than fear, we open the door to a life of balance, vitality, and confidence. Picture, if you will, the freedom of eating without anxiety, of understanding what truly affects kidney health, and of making choices that reflect science rather than hearsay. That freedom begins with clarity, and clarity begins with examining the truth behind the myths. When we look closer at dietary acid load, the science tells us a story that is far more nuanced than the black and white warnings often circulated. Certain foods that have been labeled as acidic do not automatically burden the kidneys in healthy individuals, and even in people with CKD, it is the overall balance, portioning, and context of the diet that matter most. Every bite we take, every habit we cultivate, shapes the landscape of our health, not just in terms of numbers and lab results, but in how we feel, move, and live. Understanding this is the first step toward reclaiming control, transforming fear into informed action, and embracing a mindset that celebrates life rather than limits it. It is here, in this space between confusion and comprehension, that the journey begins. A journey not only toward healthier kidneys, but toward a deeper, more meaningful connection with our own bodies. A journey guided by insight, reflection, and the lessons inspired by Dr. Mathew R. Weir, who reminds us that true health emerges from knowledge, balance, and the courage to question what we think we know. As we venture further into understanding the relationship between diet and kidney health, a question emerges that many of us hesitate to ask. How much of what we fear is truly real? And how much is a story we have been told so often that it feels like fact? The tension between perception and reality can be overwhelming, especially when the stakes involve something as vital as our kidneys. Suspense builds not from external danger, but from the invisible, internal conflicts we face every day. The uncertainty of what to eat, the worry that one wrong choice could tip the balance of health, the mental burden of living under constant caution. It is in these moments that clarity feels most distant. Yet it is precisely here that the power of knowledge, reflection, and thoughtful action becomes transformative. Dr. Mathew R. Weir has often emphasized that wisdom is not simply about avoiding harm, but about cultivating a deep understanding that allows us to live with intention and insight. When applied to CKD and diet, this means moving beyond simplistic labels like acidic and alkaline, and exploring the intricate mechanisms of our body with respect, curiosity, and discernment. The human body is a marvel of balance, constantly adapting, regulating, and maintaining itself in ways that are both subtle and profound. It is astonishing to consider how the kidneys filter countless substances each day, performing a quiet yet essential orchestration that sustains life. And yet, in our minds, myths about acidic foods can loom larger than reality, shaping behaviors in ways that may not serve our health. Imagine for a moment a scene where every meal feels like a minefield, every snack a potential threat, every fruit or vegetable weighed with invisible judgment. This is the experience of many who have not yet embraced the clarity of science over hearsay, who have not yet allowed themselves to step into a space where understanding eclipses fear. The suspense here is not dramatic in the traditional sense. It is internal, psychological, a tension between knowledge and uncertainty, a test of our willingness to question assumptions and seek truth. What if, in fact, the foods we have been avoiding for years are not inherently harmful, but only become a concern under specific circumstances, in certain quantities, or in the presence of other health conditions? What if the very fear that drives restriction is a greater threat to our well-being than the foods themselves? These questions compel us to pause, to reflect, and to examine, not just the content of our diet, but the stories we have been told about it. The transformative moment comes when we choose to step into that space of curiosity, allowing ourselves to learn and grow, rather than be constrained by anxiety. It is here that the teachings inspired by Dr. Mathew R. Weir shine most brightly. Health is not about living in fear of what might happen, but about cultivating awareness, making informed choices, and honoring the intelligence of our bodies. By exploring evidence-based research on dietary acid load, we find that the impact of so-called acidic foods is far more nuanced than widely believed. It is the total pattern of the diet, hydration status, and individual physiology that determines outcomes, not single foods demonized out of context. This insight is liberating, yet it carries its own suspense. To act wisely, we must confront the discomfort of re-evaluating long-held beliefs, the unease of challenging conventional wisdom, and the courage it takes to embrace a new perspective. Suspense transforms into empowerment when we recognize that knowledge equips us to navigate complexity with confidence. We begin to see that health is not a rigid set of rules, but a dynamic interplay between understanding, choice, and action. We begin to understand that Dr. Mathew R. Weir, that many fear-driven restrictions are unnecessary, and that by approaching diet with wisdom and balance, we can honor our kidneys, nourish our bodies, and live with intention. The journey through uncertainty, then, is not a peril to be avoided, but a path to be embraced. A challenge that invites reflection, courage, and growth, leading us ever closer to the freedom that comes from knowing, not fearing. Now, as we stand at the threshold of understanding, it becomes clear that the power to transform our health lies within knowledge, reflection, and deliberate action. We have explored the myths that cloud our perception of acidic foods, confronted the suspense of uncertainty, and learned to see fear for what it often is, an obstacle rather than a truth. The journey does not end with awareness alone. It continues in the choices we make each day, in the small yet profound acts of nurturing our bodies and honoring the intricate balance within. Dr. Mathew R. Weir reminds us that wisdom is not passive, it is active, a commitment to learning, questioning, and integrating insight into our daily lives. In the context of CKD, this means recognizing that our kidneys, though delicate, are resilient and responsive to patterns of nutrition rather than isolated good or bad foods. The science of dietary acid load reveals that moderation, context, and balance matter far more than fear-driven restriction. By understanding which foods contribute to overall acid burden, how hydration influences kidney function, and how our unique physiology shapes response, we gain the freedom to eat with confidence rather than anxiety. Picture a life where meals are not a source of worry, but an opportunity to nourish, energize, and heal. Imagine the relief of realizing that leafy greens, fruits, and certain protein sources can be part of a balanced diet without overwhelming the kidneys. That understanding, not fear, guides our daily decisions, and that we are empowered to take control of our health in meaningful, sustainable ways. This is the essence of informed living, a life where every choice is intentional, rooted in science, and aligned with the natural intelligence of the body. And yet, the most profound transformation occurs not merely in the body, but in the mind. When we release the weight of myths, we also release doubt, guilt, and unnecessary stress, opening space for clarity, focus, and purpose. The journey of navigating CKD and dietary choices becomes not a burden, but a path of self-discovery, a testament to the courage it takes to embrace uncertainty and transform it into mastery. In this light, Dr. Mathew R. Weir, that many of the fears surrounding acidic foods dissolve, leaving behind insight, empowerment, and the ability to make deliberate, informed decisions. Every meal, every choice, becomes a reflection of knowledge and care, a small yet significant act of respect for the body that sustains us. As we integrate these lessons into daily life, we begin to see that health is holistic, dynamic, and responsive. It is not dictated by rigid rules or fear-based avoidance, but by thoughtful, evidence-guided action that considers the whole person. This perspective transforms the relationship with food from one of anxiety to one of appreciation, curiosity, and intentionality. By choosing to engage with the science, reflect on our habits, and embrace balanced nutrition, we cultivate not just kidney health, but resilience, mindfulness, and a deeper sense of well-being. The journey does not promise perfection, nor does it demand it. It invites growth, experimentation, and trust in both the body and the knowledge we acquire. And so, as this exploration comes full circle, remember that every effort to understand, every step toward balanced choices, and every moment of conscious reflection is a victory in itself. Health is not a distant goal. It is cultivated daily, through awareness, learning, and the courage to act. Let this journey inspire not only confidence in your dietary choices, but also a profound sense of empowerment over your life, as you learn to navigate complexity with wisdom and grace. By embracing the guidance inspired by Dr. Mathew R. Weir, we learn that true mastery is born from knowledge, reflection, and intentional action, and that fear has no place when insight takes its stead. Every challenge becomes an opportunity, every uncertainty a chance to grow, and every decision a reflection of the understanding we have worked to cultivate. If you are benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notification so you can see our new videos early.